Hi! Thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel, Reverend MeeLing, been known as Reverend MeeLing, Reverend Susan MeeLing, Lady MeeLing, Lady Dori, Belle, quite a few names. So I'm going to discuss a couple oddities. For example, I've already completed prior official YouTube videos in reference to my biological sister, Patricia Ann Hom Miller, having her personal issues in reference to not just after she had moved to the state of Texas because she had tarnished her reputation in Crystal Lake, Illinois so badly that she convinced my biological parents, her, mom and dad, Mike Lee Hom and Anna Louise Lally Hom, to move to the state of Texas because she could no longer blame me after I had gotten myself emancipated to join the United States of America's Armed Forces Army branch, to be specific, for everything she did wrong before I had left. See, before I had gone into the Army, she was able to blame me for everything that she did wrong. However, once I was no longer in the house in Crystal Lake, Illinois, and that obviously includes in comparison to when growing up in the state of New Jersey, when she could no longer blame me for what she did wrong, and she was left to her own devices, all she did was remain as herself. And in turn, when she had not even a total of 3 years in full of just being herself and not having me to blame for everything she did wrong, she had convinced my biological parents, her parents, to move to the state of Texas under the guise of claiming to be there to help my son and my daughter and I. However, actions speak louder than words, even though my words and their lack of actions prove my exact point that it was to no longer have no one to blame for what Patricia did. So in turn, moving to the state of Texas, which, by the way, to those of the state of Texas, I don't think I technically owe you an apology by technicalities, but I do apologize that my biological sister did convince that, because I do not doubt that she blamed a whole bunch of stuff on me, as she did when growing up in New Jersey and then the 2 years in Illinois. I would guesstimate that not only did she do that, she actually being, more normal looking comparatively, because, I have my hair color and style, and I have my tattoos. And while now in 2020, it's more common for some people to have different hairstyle and hair color, and more common to have tattoos, back in, I guess my first tattoo was 2006, so 2006 to 2013 wasn't very common for as the combination that I am. However, that aside, she, meaning my biological sister, Patricia Ann Hom Miller, went to San Marcos University. And she had married a guy named Zach. He didn't know that I exist until after they got engaged. Then he found out about, me. And he hypothetically most likely thought, when my biological sister told him that she had a sister that needed to meet him, he probably thought it was a sorority sister. And then I explained that no, biologically related. So that had to be an awkward discussion nonetheless. So then my biological sister had stayed in my house in San Antonio, Texas. before she had moved in with our parents, biological parents, in San Antonio, because had to wait for the bridge loan to go through and them to sell the house in Crystal Lake, Illinois, to fully move into the house in San Antonio. And so in turn, that meant she had access to the computer in my house in San Antonio, Texas, the gateway computer. And she also, along with my biological mother, who had been in Prudential Information Technology Department in Holmdel, New Jersey in the 1980s and 90s, before being in information technology in McHenry County Government Center in Woodstock, Illinois, before moving to the state of Texas. So where I forgot, because of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, and the subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain, and the damage caused, and the coma, and the headaches, and the migraines, and having gone from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math, but more specifically the memory deficits and cognitive disorders, where I did learn, those who know Asher Holmes Elementary School specifically, especially in the 1980s and 1990s, my particular elementary school, we learned a lot of stuff on computers. And unlike most people in the 1980s, there were 2 computers in the house I grew up in. There was my biological mother's work computer, which I didn't mess with at all. Now, there were times where I was asked to do some programming, but that was it. I didn't touch the computer unless my biological mother had wanted me to. And then there was the IBM DOS computer that I had used and stuff like that. And in Asher Holmes Elementary School, we learned on Apple Mac computers. So I got to learn on multiple computer systems, not forgetting my babysitter, in specific Sonia and Joe or Jose. They had their own computers, as well as my babysitter's children, Liza and David. So they each had their own computers. They were all different. Joe or Jose's computer was very, very different than Liza's computer, which was also different from David's computer. And I got to learn how to use all of them. Now, David's computer, if I'm not mistaken, he had a Windows computer, whereas Liza had, I think it was an IBM, or it might have been a Tandy, one or the other. And then Joe or Jose's computer, well, he had a laptop. He had a couple of laptops, and that was in the 1980s. So I don't know what company that was that I got to work on those computers. So that's like my, so pre-head injury, I was really, 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 really good with computers. I mean, and it's ironic because after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, I have massively huge problems using computers. Thank goodness for Geek Squad. And thanks goodness for Best Buy, because, I know I'm not the only person who has issues with using computers. But that might make a lot more sense to some people why I get extremely frustrated when it comes to computers nowadays, because I learned how to use all sorts of computers as a child, and that's not even taking into consideration the computer games on each David and Liza's computers, as well as the IBM DOS, as well as the Nintendo, the different series versions that Liza and David had, and then the Sega Genesis. And so I they're tacky guys who probably understand that in a very broad spectrum in regards to that. where I just, I know I worked on a bunch of computers. That's about it. So after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, I have a lot of problems. I do the best I can. I truly do. However, there are problems for me. And so my biological sister, Patricia Ann Hom Miller, who went to McHenry High School in San Antonio, that's where she graduated from. Patricia Ann Hom graduated from McHenry High School in San Antonio, Texas. She actually noticed that problem that I had before my now dead ex-husband knew about it. He had found out about it after my biological parents and biological sister moved to San Antonio. Patricia Ann Hom, at that time Hom Miller now, if they are still married, she knew about that instantly. She actually made fun of me for not being the way I once was with computers. She actually was really freaked out by it because she thought I was faking it. She thought that I was pretending to not be good at computers, and then she realized, no, like, I'm really, really bad with computers. It was probably about a year later. Yeah, it was a year later. It was 2004. It was 2004 that if it wasn't for that neighbor, well, not next door neighbor, but within the neighborhood, had met him at the mailbox right after a massively big problem where thankfully he was able to get the dissertation off of that laptop. Massively huge save on that one. Pun intended. Because, you save programs, right? I need a techie joke. Maybe not that good of a techie joke, but it's still a techie joke. And without a floppy disk. Oh, that's right, there's not floppy disks anymore. Whatever. Nonetheless, my biological sister noticed it, and when Anna, in specific, my biological mother who did the information technology stuff, when she got to the state of Texas, Patricia Ann Hom, my biological sister, informed Anna Louise Lally Hom of my problems with technology. So the two of them had constant access to whichever computer. And my biological sister, having gotten so many things much quicker than I ever did. For example, even though I was involved with track and field, and I was doing the shot put and the discus and the different hurdle races, as well as high jump and long jump, my biological parents said that I could only wear glasses. And if I wanted to wear contacts, which I preferred, I was told that I could get sports goggles. I'll just take my glasses off. That's not going to happen. And then when my biological mother was like, so, you're going to be a cheerleader when we move to Crystal Lake, Illinois. That way you can make friends as females. So how do you want me to do this seeing thing? With glasses. Oh, we can get you sports goggles. I guess I'll just take my eyeglasses off when I do cheerleading, because I don't think so. That was my biological mother. Don't tell me she didn't hate me. First off, anybody who's known me over the years, while I can be a cheerleader in certain regards. I am not the stereotypical cheerleader, obviously. And those who knew me at Crystal Lake South that I was friends with, even the ones that I wasn't friends with, cannot deny I was not the stereotypical cheerleader at all. And those who I knew in New Jersey, probably whenever they found out, were how? You? Her? Be a cheerleader? You kidding? She was the biggest nerd in the school and like a girl, but yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah, so, which is a quick little side note. There was this one guy that I had a crush on when I was in, in middle school, and he had no idea at the time how much into technology I actually was into. And if he only knew back then, I doubt I would have been turned down. In some ways, I guess, I don't know, but nonetheless, yeah, I am how I am. I told in what was it? It was Adam Landau in 8th grade. I was like, oh, "You're cute." He's like, "I don't think we're compatible." Oh wait, I don't know if you understand, because that's technology stuff. I don't want you thinking about computers or whatever. Okay. I can understand the difference, but that's fine. Okay. If he only knew how many computers I had been working on at that time. By that time, ugh. By that time, geez, because, well, Joe or Jose, he had multiple laptops as well as desktops, so. That aside. Um, anyway, so, really bad with technology after waking up from my coma. Especially compared to what I used to be able to do, which is funny in a different way, because there's just a couple of guys that I knew. There was one particularly in Dallas. And I never got to tell him how many computers I had worked on over the years. I just only got to tell him how much I messed up on computers. And he found out how much I messed up on computers, but he was more interested in the fact that he, being a former Marine, and I landed at the bottom of the ocean. And so, in the Matthias abyss. Anyway, so my biological sister had been able to get contacts when she was in middle school. I had to go and buy my own contacts. I had to go actually make the appointment, pay for it myself, get the contacts, pay for those myself, because I had a job and I had to pay for that, all for me to be able to actually have that. My biological mother refused. She said that I didn't need contacts because, what cheerleader needs to wear contacts? Why can't you just wear sports goggles? And so, yeah, and that is, again, don't ever argue with me in reference to how much my biological mother hated me, especially in comparison to my biological sister. So not only that, I didn't ever get a cell phone until many years later, and I had to buy my own car twice. I bought the first car, which I didn't even want to buy. Which was the 1986 Dodge Grand Caravan beige with wood paneling with over 250,000 miles on it. I had to pay for my own insurance, and I had to pay for the head gasket that blew 3 different times before I was allowed to get a new one. which it wasn't even a new one. It was a 1993 Honda Civic, 5 to the floor. Oh, I got that. I learned how to drive manual transmission, and I will just leave it at the fact that I got that car to go a little fast. Those who have driven Honda Civics and cars similar know that that particular car can go a little fast. And I have to pause real quick before going on. There was this one guy I was dating in Ohio, and I had snuck to go see him, and while living in Illinois, I technically did sleep over at my friend's house the following night. That is a whole other ball of wax. Anyway, I went out to Ohio. However, those who remember MapQuest, back especially in the late 1990s, I wound up in Iowa, which is not on the way to Ohio from Illinois at all. And so I had to make up some time. Just drive it a little fast. And when I got to Ohio, the guy, his dad had a bus company, if I'm not mistaken, and went over there with him at one point, and I was like, is that a 442 engine? I know that engine block. And he was just, what did you just, is that a 442 engine block? And I started listing stuff, and he, well, yeah, oh, come on, let's rip the engine out of that Honda Civic, put that in there. You want to talk about some speed? I can just zoom, zoom, zoom. And he just, no, it cannot go. Why not? Because that's too powerful for a Honda Civic. You're just pansy. You're just scared that I'm going to drive faster than you. No, you can't. If you only knew how long I should have taken to get here. Because I didn't tell him that I wound up in Ohio, or in Iowa, instead of in Indiana. That particular time. So, you know. Otherwise, he would not have probably argued with me in reference to, though, you know, okay, I didn't get any speeding tickets for having a 442 engine in a Honda Civic, but can you imagine how fast that would have gone? Anyway, and so, could have so taken that to the fucking quarter mile and just, anyway, I've been able to, just saying. Not that I didn't know how to win those races anyway without pushing the NOS. I only pushed the NOS button once, which was fun. But that's, so back on track, pun intended. I got that, I do have to say real quick, I got that 1986 Dodge Grand Caravan beige with wood paneling up in speed. I got it to go into the triple digits. Just saying. So leave it at that. And I would say how fast I was going, but I can't. Irony, because the numbers, well, the line didn't have any more numbers for the arm. And so I have a little bit of a lead foot, and See why I don't drive motorcycles? I like to go fast, and so that's the convertible. That's why I've had convertible. It's kind of safer, at least for me. And so, anyway, so after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, really, really, really bad with technology. And my biological sister, Patricia Ann Hom Miller, now, she knew that. She had shown Anna, my biological mother, but nonetheless, yeah, showed her. And so Patricia had a cell phone in middle school, just as she had contact lenses in middle school, which was when I was in high school, and I had to buy my own. My biological sister was given her cars that she's had over the years. I had to buy mine. You see big differences in that regard. So, anytime Anna, Louise Lally Hom, my biological mother, would go over to the house, or whatever, as far as, my house in San Antonio or my house in Carrollton, Texas, the first thing that she wanted to do was, she had one of those silver things, those silver circle thingamabobs, like DVDs, and she'd have that, and she'd say that she had to do stuff as far as that. I don't know. I thought she was watching a movie, and then she had, as far as that, with she always needed to have my cell phone cord as well. When doing that, because I don't know, whatever, movie stuff. And so my biological sister, when she'd come over my house, specifically more so in Carrollton, Texas, the few times, did that. And then when no longer essentially speaking with my biological sister, my biological mother would take my cell phone and my laptop and have the DVD thing, the silver circle DVD, and have to have my laptop along with my cell phone to do update stuff or whatever. And that even happened in the apartment complex in Irving. Ironically, before a situation that had occurred. That being said, and I'll do another official YouTube video on that, because there's a whole other kit and caboodle there. Anyway, so in San Antonio, when moving back there and in the apartment, my biological mother, biological father would go over to my apartment, or townhouse in San Antonio, and again, anytime Anna Louise Lally Hom would go over to my apartment, first thing she wanted was the laptop. And she'd have her DVD to watch in the laptop thing, which I didn't understand why, because, unless the DVD thing didn't work in the video game thing that my son would play video games in. I don't know how that stuff works. They look the same. Is what it is. And so after a certain point of living in my townhouse in San Antonio, there were some individuals that I had known in the San Antonio community. One particular female had been arrested for stealing garden gnomes. Her name on FetLife in 2012 had been Discordia, and in real life Erica, at least as far as I was told. And she lived in her mom and dad's house. And her dad supposedly had been somebody over at Johns Hopkins University, and she claimed that just because her dad had been a doctor, that automatically gave her a doctor's license, which obviously it did not. That was the same individual who had admitted for years she had been messing with my head injury after effects, along with my biological mother, my biological father, my biological sister, as well as my ex-sister-in-law, Susie Marie Nichols Lopez, and my other ex-sister-in-law, Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen, but only in reference to when she came out to Texas and then the one time that I went out to Georgia before going to Florida. And so, because Susie Marie Nichols Lopez and Mary Evangelina Nichols Osteen spoke on the phone with one another, of course, I guess, at least that's what I was told about. Anyway, so Erica, also known as Discordia on FetLife in 2012, she had convinced me to let Alicia move in to my townhouse because of whatever garbage that could help or some other. And she had convinced me to help several people in the San Antonio BDSM community as far as different aspects of trying to help certain situations calm down. And it was one of those, in certain situations I did. It was very cut and dry. I'd get both sides of the situation, and it was, well, you're saying this, this is what I see in the middle, this is the potential compromise, this is what you can do, this is what you can do, and if you make it work, you make it work, if you don't, you don't. And just very, well, Alicia, which wound up being Erica, the female who stole garden gnomes and was arrested for stealing garden gnomes and went to jail in San Antonio for stealing garden gnomes. She had 2 daughters and a son, I think, and was dating a guy named Brian who was in the Air Force. And I don't know if that's the same Brian who had also been a San Antonio police officer who had put handcuffs on me at the 410 and Marbach, Jim's restaurant. I wasn't under arrest. He thought it'd be funny as a prank, and then had the nerve to tell me that I needed help. I don't think there's many people at all that would find that prank to be funny at all. Nonetheless, Alicia had stayed for a little while in my townhouse, and it was because my daughter was in the hospital at the time. And Alicia had been in college, but then she dropped out of college because she couldn't keep up with whatever excuse and stuff like that. And whether she had known my biological sister, Patricia Ann Hom Miller, or not, I don't know. However, Alicia got along with my biological mother, Anna Louise Lallyhom. They would actually spend hours together with my laptop and that DVD thing while I'd be talking with Mike, my biological father. And it was Alicia, I can't remember her last name. Her dad was the one that I met that had been a Mustang. Oh, by the way, just so you know, since you're kind of patriotic, we're about to pull into this, house. But I don't know if you need to know this, but, my dad, have you ever heard of the term Mustang? During the Korean War and retired with stars. Oh, okay. Any military or non-military guys that know what a Mustang is can be here your dad is a what? And he retired with stars? I can't breathe. Oh, I'm gonna be a Mustang? What? Oh my! Could have warned me, when we were in San Antonio before we got to Fort Worth, or any point in time from San Antonio to Fort Worth, Texas. There's plenty of time. Could have given me the heads up to be like, by the way, not 2 minutes before pulling into the driveway. Just saying. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you find this important or not. Yeah, I wanted to look like a schlub driving, that's for certain. I'd have worn something more appropriate to meet a Mustang. But sure, okay, I'll just, stick with my jeans and a t-shirt. I would have worn, like, something much more nicer than jeans and a t-shirt to meet a Mustang. I'm just saying, I do admit I know I was born as a female and I'm still a female. And I'm not necessarily the most girly girl at all, despite wearing a dress right now. But I would have been so much more appropriately dressed than jeans and a t-shirt. Freaking find out it's a Mustang. I mean, it's not like I had a uniform or anything, but I definitely would have been in more appropriate clothing. Would have been a nice pair of slacks or a suit or something more appropriate to meet a Mustang. But whatever, okay. Retired with stars. Oh, okay. Whatever. Don't know if you need to know this or not. I don't think you'll find this a big deal. Oh, okay. Just saying. Anyway, I know that there are people who understand that and would be just as infuriated. Like, I just got this t-shirt and this pair of jeans. Like, I could and then sneakers, and that was it. Like, I mean, it was still, it was still appropriate, but come on now. I admit I was all girly girl. I could have done something, but no, okay, fine. I'll just, wear this and, just a Monday. I'm retired with stars. So rare. Such a rarity. I'm just, but sure, yeah, it's just, what's the big deal? Doesn't matter what branch of the United States of America's armed forces at all. Just saying. Still retired as a Mustang with stars. And he was like promoted as a private first class or a PV2, either PV3 or PV2, one or the other. And retired with stars. I would guesstimate there are plenty of people who very much understand that. Retired with stars. I don't know if you'll find this important or not. Anyway, so, which I did salute that guy. I refused to not salute until he saluted back. I just, okay. I know I'm not dressed up, but I don't care. And that was after my son saluted because I had raised him correctly. And so, anyway, so, Alicia, living in the townhouse, obviously had access to my laptop as well as my cell phone. And then later wound up moving in with with Discordia, or Erica. I don't remember what Alicia's FetLife name was. But she had become a submissive to Erica later on. Nonetheless, Anna, Louise Lallyholm, my biological mother, and Alicia got along smashingly. I mean, they would spend hours together talking. And then there was a situation in which the two of them tried to convince me to date. And I was dating someone at the time. They didn't know that because I didn't want to accidentally discuss that in front of my son in my apartment. Not that I was embarrassed of the guy I was dating at the time, just being a mom and not wanting to. I'm a really responsible mom. I know it probably sounds weird, but it's just one of the... And yeah, he had met my son and my daughter before at scuba diving, but not in the way of dating. And so I'm very particular, especially when my son and my daughter were younger. Very, very, very particular in that regard. Didn't want to cause any issues, and as best as I could. And so Alicia and my biological mother had threatened to make me online dating profile, so that way they could get me to date. And they didn't seem to understand that I was not interested at that time, not because of not being involved with someone, because I was, but that was none of their business. And so the two of them were just like, oh, well, we'll do this and we'll do that. And you just need to not have, what, and it's like, if I want to date, I'll date, which I'm going to do my own thing. And, if I want to date somebody in San Antonio, I'll date somebody in San Antonio. But I that's what I told them. And I was like, I'm not looking for what you're thinking I am, so just stop. And the two of them didn't want to take the hint of no meant no at all. My biological father thought that, well, you can't be alone for all of your life. I don't want to be alone all of my life. I would like to actually get into a relationship where, that stuff with, marriage, which was really weird because of discussing that with my biological father. And he was just like, well, you just have a lot of baggage. Yes, I know. However, I don't want to just have a fling. I don't want to just, I want stuff, but just, just when it's time, and that ring stuff and he actually laughed at that because he was like, wow, you just went all, feminine. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I know what I was born as. I know what I am. Okay. But at that time, again, it was towards the beginning of dating the individual that I was dating at the time. It's like, you just stop. And again, because it wasn't discussed between that guy and I about, exclusivity or anything further. It was in the beginning phases. So, it was one of those, do you mind? If I want to date, I'll, whatever, as far as San Antonio is concerned. But right now, I've got some other stuff I'm doing, and, life, and I did not want to say I was dating the guy to my freaking biological parents. I know there are people who understand this. I know I am not the only person who's had to have this, maybe not necessarily the same way. Nonetheless, they had continuously tried to get me to date people that I wasn't interested in dating, and they didn't want to take no for an answer. And I was one of those, at the exact same time, I didn't want to be like, so I'm dating a guy and he's, living in a different part of the state of Texas. Will you back off? Because with my luck, my son would have come outside right at that moment. Mom, you're dating so, and then, I know, I had to, because life was extremely difficult back then, and it's so much more difficult now. Obviously, for me at least. I know that for others as well, but yeah, and so shortly after, I wound up saving that particular guy's life, and he wound up actually hearing how atrocious my biological mother was immediately after I brought him back to life. Meaning within, I don't think it had even been 3 hours that I had brought him back to life. And so, yeah. And then he just kind of looked at me and was like, oh my God, yeah, okay. I'm all like crying and stuff, okay? Like, I look like a, I mean, I am a girl, but stop. It's like I'm all like crying and stuff. And I'm not, those who have known me over the years, I'm not the type of person who just, especially that type of cry. Yeah. Like tears here and there. I'll blame it, like at least at those times, because I technically could, because my contacts usually did flip while I was tearing up about what I was talking about, which had to do with my daughter. But yeah, it would just be like a tear here, tear there. It's like, stop it, that my eyeballs are leaking. It's allergies. I'm allergic to what I'm upset about, sort of thing. Technically the truth. But that guy, he actually got me, he got to see me cry, like, cry. It's just so, I don't like crying. I mean, I know that it happens and it's helpful in certain regards. Just, I am not the type of person who actually likes to cry. And as a female, that's extremely odd, because at least not all females, but most of the females I've known over the years, they do that crying for attention. And it's like, no, don't. Like, it just, So yeah, I was all girl and ugh. Just ugh. And like guys pre-head injury that knew me and hung out with me, I mean, when we'd play football and I'd tackle somebody, and we'd be playing in the street football, and concrete is not very forgiving. Just saying, get scraped up and all that sort of stuff, and be like, get this gravel out of here. All right, come on, let's go. ready, hi. Let's go play some street hockey now. Let's get the hockey sticks out. Whap! I mean, whoops. Big tomboy growing up, just saying. And so, I mean, even when I ran into a board full of rusty nails, I didn't really cry until after, after Mike ripped the board with the nails out of my leg. And it wasn't when he did that I started crying. It was after pouring the iodine into my wound. Then I started crying because that hurt, because then he started like moving, and that did hurt. And then I got hit for crying for running into a board that he had thrown out in the middle of the backyard. That had a whole bunch of rusty nails sticking out of it because he was rebuilding the garage. And then, I should have been paying attention to where I was running. I didn't even cry when I fell off of the roof. I mean, so, I mean, it was just saying. So if I say that something hurts, that's a lot of pain. It's a whole bunch of pain. That's like, yeah. I mean, I didn't. I just had the wind knocked out of me, literally. And I didn't actually start crying until I started getting beaten because I flipped off Mike after he asked me from the roof that I had just fallen from, as he looked at me on the ground, did that hurt? And I looked up at him and I was like, yeah, it hurt. Because nobody wants to fall from a second story. at all. Well, technically it was 3 stories high because of the way that particular house was built into the hill. And so on that side, anyway, that's a whole other ball of wax. Anyway, and then when he said, you know, I didn't feel a thing, ha ha ha. Well, I flipped him off for asking me if it hurt falling off of the roof, and then saying yes, and then him saying I didn't feel a thing. I think I had the right to flip him off at that point. Especially being born and raised in New Jersey. I think I kind of had the right. I don't think there's many people who wouldn't have that instant response of, And then I got my ass beat because I flipped him off for being upset that he told me it didn't hurt that I fell off of the roof. Then I cried. Though it was mainly gasping for air because I still couldn't. Still had issues breathing at that time because, falling off of a roof and stuff like that. Don't recommend it. I'm sure there's plenty of guys that could be like, yeah, that's not a good idea. Just saying, maybe there's a doctor out there that could be like, so medically, it is not recommended to climb up a ladder and then fall off of the ladder, landing on the ground. Not recommended to do that. Just saying. Maybe you don't even need to be a doctor or a medical professional to make that recommendation. Maybe, just maybe, you don't need any medical schooling at all to be like, do not fall off of a ladder and fall on the ground, because that probably would hurt a lot with a bunch of underlines. Do not do that. Anyway, so I didn't really discuss that. And realistically, there was the guy that I was dating. Most of the guys that I dated, which not that there were that many, especially in comparison to my biological sister, I really didn't date that many guys. I didn't. And so I've always been kind of, I know what I look like, but yeah, I've been modest despite the way I look and what I like to wear and stuff. I know that's probably really weird, but it is what it is. And so I didn't discuss that with a lot of people, and it just is what it is. And so I didn't think that anybody would get involved with my relationship that nobody knew about. And if it was known because of the stalking and hacking thing that I didn't know about, I had been receiving threats for years by that point. Alicia had seen the threats. Alicia had brought that up at Erica's house, or parents, whatever, when we were in the garage smoking. She had told her about that and stuff like that, and they had discussed that with me, and I said, yeah, I've been receiving threats like that for years. And they only progressively got worse over the years, and they got really bad. It's it's actually really, so there was in July or June of 2019, and had gone to an event, and a message had been read that I didn't send. And that particular message that was read, that was sadly, that was very mild in comparison to some of the threats I was receiving, and very short in comparison to the threats I was receiving at the time. And I had told so many people about those threats, and nobody believed me at that time. Actually got made fun of for it. And so, there were a few that had come through, and I'd click on the subject line, and a pop-up window would open, and there were videos for some, and others that it was a pop-up video with a whole bunch of words, the whole threat thing, and then it would just close out on its own. And those were even more petrifying. Those were even scarier than the some of the other threats I had received over the years. And so, I'd not not been believed about a lot of different things. And so obviously now it's probably different, and it's been realized, because one of the main threats that I could remember was being kidnapped and kept at the foot of my captor's bed. And but nobody would find me. I will say, though, that when I had published my first book and sent it out with the complimentary book, I had given, obviously, a copy to my son, and I had registered it through the Library of Congress and all sorts of stuff, and mailed it to a bunch of places. And then at one point I had given a copy of the 2 books to my now ex-boyfriend. And at first he didn't have time to read it. And then one day he read it after, and I had been working on my Medal of Honor art project for a couple of years by that point. And shortly after he had actually read that, it was only after he had read a couple of pages of Failsafe, the Kennedy Curse fused with science fiction fantasy that I had written. It was only after he had read those few pages that I had typed up that he decided to read Finding a Silver Lining and Finding the Silver Lining. And then, it was what it was. So, anyway, I don't know if any of that is considered to be important or not, especially when it comes to my biological mother, my biological sister, and Alicia. But then there was also Anna and Matt, which were two individuals that I'd met in the San Antonio community, BDSM community, and Matt had worked in the Air Force, and Anna had this thing about causing problems in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then tried to get me to be jealous because of some stuff that was going on, and it was one of those, if that's what's happening, that's what's happening. It's their business, not mine. Though I had a lot of people that tried to poke and prod me to respond to various ways, and not in a literal way, in a figurative way, where, oh, well, so-and-so said this. Well, if that's what so-and-so said, that's what so-and-so said. Well, why aren't you upset about it? Well, because they didn't say it to my face. They're not going to say it to my face. I kind of have certain difficulties with certain things, and with what I was receiving threat-wise, I didn't put that together either. So, anyway, it's the end of this official YouTube channel video. Comment, like, share, and subscribe. You guys have a good one.